Hello. As we usher in the fall of 2023, we find ourselves in a unique and for many unpredictable housing market. With interest rates on the rise, a Bank of Canada announcement scheduled for September 6th, and a landscape that feels ever shifting, homeowners and potential sellers are seeking clarity more now than ever. If you are considering selling your home or condo during these times, you've come to the right place. Today, we're going to share our top 5 tips that will help you navigate this market and maximize your selling potential if you're hitting the market this fall. So whether you're a seasoned homeowner, a first-time seller, or someone trying to just make sense of it all, join us as we take a deep dive into our top strategies that we feel will help set you up for success this very season. Ralph?
I'm Ralph Fox, and I am the co-founder and broker of record of Fox Marin, and we are a real estate brokerage that's focused on central and downtown Toronto. We just want to welcome you here to our kitchen, and this here is Kori Marin.
Hello, and I'm also a co-founder at Fox Marin. I'm also a real estate broker, and I've been in business for over 10 years, and we don't even need to talk about how long Ralph's been in the business for.
No, none of us can even remember that. We're so glad that you're all here. We're missing our third partner in crime, Ian Busher, today, who's I think somewhere in Muskoka, last I heard, enjoying himself. But we really wanted to be here today as we enter into the September fall market. So many conversations, so much to talk about when it comes to selling or thinking about selling your home. And here's what we're seeing and the advice that we're giving to our clients or potential sellers coming up this fall. And so in terms of overarching themes is we're seeing really the importance of needing to have reasonable expectations if you're a seller and considering selling the market. Toronto traditionally and historically has been a market where prices just sell at exuberant prices. And, it's something really that should be tempered if you're looking to sell in 2023, in the fall of 2023, especially in this environment of not just inflation, but increasing interest rates. And the September 6th Bank of Canada announcement will be very interesting as well. So managing those expectations in conjunction with a clear understanding of why you're selling and what your ultimate goal is going to be super important. Another overarching theme will be, it's very much going to be a tale of two markets.
So true.
We think that low-rise, meaning low-rise homes are going to be much stronger than condos. And we do expect to see more softness in the condo market than in the low-rise market. And as well, going back to that idea of two different types of markets when looking to sell your property, you're going to see, and what we've been seeing over the summer in terms of an extension of that being two things. One, 20, 30-year lows in inventory or in sales as well. So very low transactions, not a ton of quality inventory. And what you're going to see is good properties, well-marketed properties selling, and the not so well-marketed properties, tenanted properties, those are the ones that are going to generally tend to sit. And so you're going to see some types of properties in terms of asset class or in terms of market approach doing fairly well. And you're going to see others struggling, probably more so than we've seen in the past, because those are the type of properties that have been able to still get by in a very strong market. And then I guess the other overarching and last real thing is having good representation, either on the sales side or on the buy side, are going to be important more so now than ever. And making sure that if you're considering selling your property, that you're doing it in a way that you're bringing your property's highest and best potential to light, because essentially you're looking for that one buyer, not 20 buyers anymore, but that one buyer, and your ability to lure them in is really going to be based on how your property is being represented and what type of strategies are being implemented and how attentive your representation is to your property.
So let's dive in a little bit deeper. We're going to review our top 5 tips.
Top 5 tips.
And I want our viewership to be very clear that we're speaking specifically to fall 2023. Now, these are applicable all the time, obviously, but now more than ever, we want you to pay attention to these 5 things. So the first one is going to be having reasonable expectations, because it's going to be a bit of a grind. Meaning we're not in a market where you could showcase a picture of your toilet up on MLS flipped upside down and shot from your iPhone, and another picture of your curtain rod and a picture of your closet, and then be able to sell it for a record-breaking price with 20 offers. We are not in that market. It's going to be a hustle and grind. So I think the number one thing is you have to have a really reasonable expectation working with a broker that's going to be able to do this for you about it's the expected sale range for your price. What is the forecasted sale price that's going to meet your expectations, but is going to be tempered? I don't see like record smashing sales out there. I see fair sales happening. And I think that the sales are going to really swing. So when we're working with our selling clients, oftentimes we're giving them a range of sale between $100,000, depending on what happens on any given day for every reason that we all know that is out there. So if you have reasonable expectations on price and you're not expecting a mind-blowing number, then I think if you're going in with that mindset, you're going to be okay. It's just not going to be like super sexy. I think your time on market is going to be a little bit longer. So we're very used to the velocity of the Toronto real estate market where things can sell in an hour or 2 hours or 1 day or like maybe 3 days. A week feels long. So now I think that sellers need to be a little bit more conservative with their expectations on time on market. So I'm thinking like 2 to 4 weeks, moving more into that balanced position. That's the amount of time you might be on the market, maybe even a little bit longer. But again, it's not going to fly off the shelf. I'm not expecting to see like bully offer attempts and people seeing the property like at 0 days on the market and then bringing an offer, 2 hours later. I don't expect that at all. And I think that the negotiation is going to be more aggressive than ever before. So you have to remember that buyers feel like they're in a buyer's market and they feel like they have leverage for the first time in a really, really long time in Toronto. And they are going to try to capitalize on the fact that they feel like they have power. Sellers still think that we're in the market from like 3 years ago and still want to have the highest price in the building, the highest price per square foot, the highest sale on the street. And they're using comps from the spring when the market was quite frenzied. So I think negotiating is going to be something where we're going to see some very interesting clauses, terms, conditions, a lot more back and forth with one buyer versus perhaps looking at 3, 4, or 10, 20 offers on a property. I think we're going to see buyers asking for more value for their dollar. I think we're going to see conditions. I think unique terms. So I think negotiation is going to be a part of it. And that's really where you need to have that experienced person in your corner to be your voice and your advocate.
And I think just to jump in here, there may be some price discovery. If the market softens and there's downward pressure, there's going to be tests to the market on both the low end and the high end. And I think a lot of the winning outcomes will be based when you have really strong representation who understands values and can stick to values and or explain values based on past sales and based on where the market is at the time. And so there's going to be a little bit of back and forth as the news is going to overreact and continue to tell doom and gloom stories no matter what.
I love those.
But now they may actually have some sunlight and a little bit of grounds to tell those stories or some facts to actually base it on that are current. And so I think in this type of paradigm, you're going to see some exploration between buyers and sellers. And going back to what you were saying, Kori, like now more than ever, having really strong representation that you can rely on is going to matter, maybe more so than I've seen maybe going back to since the pandemic.
For sure. And then the last little part of this is I think that sellers and their representation need to be really open to being adaptable and flexible and responsive. So what do I mean by that exactly? So that means, let's just say the Bank of Canada comes out with an interest rate increase on September 6th and you're planning to go to market on September 7th. Maybe it would be smart to maybe just let a couple weeks pass before hitting the market and like maybe changing your listing date just to see how the market's responding to it. Let buyers cool down. Let sellers cool down. Let agents absorb this information. Let the media run with that information for a week or two until it fizzles out and people just feel a little bit more calm about it. So that'd be an example of being like, okay, maybe September 7th is not a good date. I'm going to pull back and we'll list in 2 or 3 weeks. Or perhaps your neighbor just decided to stick a for sale sign in their yard the day before you were planning on going to market. Maybe it would be a good idea just to sit back and see how they perform, what strategies work for them or didn't work for them, so that you can leverage the learning and education you got from your neighbor before you go and start competing with the person right next door to you. So I think being really flexible is going to be key. And we work with all of our sellers this way specifically. So we generally do obviously like our initial pricing and valuation and then give that forecast, again, giving a massive range, especially now more than ever. And then a week before, we're going to do another reevaluation based on current conditions. Then the day before, we kind of settle in on strategy, list price, expectations, days on market. And then we're taking another look through what else has been listed. And then we've seen anything else that's been listed. We've done walkthroughs of those properties. Our eyes are wide open. And then an hour before you go to market, we're checking one last time to make sure there's no surprises. So I think that's what I mean about being adaptable, flexible, and responsive. Do you want to add to that at all?
I just think we're in an environment where there's a lot of sensitivities to a lot of things that are happening outside of the market that in turn are affecting the market, vis-a-vis interest rates, vis-a-vis Trump indictments. I mean, I could just go on and on.
Yes, you could.
Without even talking about Justin Trudeau. So we'll leave that right there. But I'm just saying that so many things can happen and are happening that are so beyond anyone's control. And then oftentimes predictions that can affect the market. And so being as flexible and being as open to options as things change is going to be really important. The days, which is very old school, of 3 weeks in advance, putting a date in the calendar and sticking to that date and strategy, gone,
Completely gone. And if your agent's recommending that, then you're not working with the right partner.
Oh, I'd question it.
I would totally question it. Okay, I love number 1. Okay, so we're going to move on to number 2, which just follows through with what we were saying with tip number 1. Tip number 2, if you're listing your property fall 2023, you must go to market with correct pricing and a correct strategy. So again, you want to have a very fair target range of sale in mind. And again, this is not going to be record-breaking territory. And this is where we really need to start monitoring what's working and not working. So notoriously, in downtown Toronto, condos and low-rise properties have always done very well in a seller's market by listing low, marketing the property for a full week, and accepting offers at a specific date and time in the hopes of eliciting multiple offers, aka a bidding war, to drive the price up to its highest and best, which would generally drive it to a record smashing, ridiculous, doesn't make sense number. That may not be the best strategy this fall 2023. Now, I think there are going to be specific properties that are going to do very well using that strategy, particularly low-rise properties, so houses, detached semis and row houses in good areas, in good condition, that are turnkey, that are under a certain price point. And I'm going to use the threshold of under 1.8 million. I think properties in that sweet spot between, let's say, 900,000, if you can find one, up to 1.8 million in great neighborhoods with good schools that are turnkey, that have character, that can romance people, that are well marketed, staged, look aesthetically good, and don't require a huge cash reserve to renovate the property before you move in. I think those are still going to be hot to trot. And I still think that the strategy of listing low and having an offer date for that type of category is going to work really well. However, sellers, I really think it's important not to list too low. So we've also seen in Toronto where properties are listed for 999, 999, and then they have an offer date and they sell for 1.6 million. right now in this market, I don't think that temperament or that strategy is going to sit well with buyers who feel like they have a bit more power, which they do. So it would be my recommendation to list a little bit closer to probably what it's worth, but still under your goal range. So I'm going to say if it's worth 1.3, consider listing around 1.1. If it's listed for what, if you want 1.5, you're listing in like 1.35. Like it's like within range. I think that the days of getting $600,000 over the list price is not going to land well with the buyer psychology right now. And I definitely do not think that is a smart strategy to use, meaning list low and have an offer date in categories that are going to be oversaturated with inventory, which will likely be the condo sector, which has often been driven by the investors who are probably going to be looking to dump some of their units. So I think that the condo market, I definitely do not see that as being a smart strategy, even if the property is luxury or a loft. I still think, which notoriously in the past have done very well with that, I still think it's a really smart strategy to list a little bit higher than what it's worth, and then offers anytime, or perhaps offers with irrevocables with a 24-hour request. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think going back to the earlier point of being flexible in your approach, but now tying that into pricing, I think going back to the theme of price exploration, I do think that as a seller, one of the things to keep in mind is if you have a range and you're trying to hit that top or middle end of the range, and you've been on the market and you're 30 plus days and you're marketed properly, everything is executed properly, everyone is being responded to, and you're either not getting the eyeballs, you're not getting the showings, or you're not getting the positive feedback and you're not eliciting any offers, then the market will tell you what something is worth if everything is done correctly over a period of time. And so you may have to adjust your expectations downward in a softer market. And that is something that you really need to keep your mind open to if you have other objectives with selling your property in terms of either where you want to live or where you want to put capital. So I think being flexible with your pricing, knowing we are going to see some short-term downward pressure, is really important.
For sure. One thing, sellers, that I want you to make sure that you're doing when you're working with your broker is, let's say your target is, I want, 1.2 million. I'm just using this number for the sake of our case study here. I want you to take a sweep of like everything in your area, whether it's a condo, a loft, a townhouse, another semi-detached house. What does $1.2 million get you in the market today? So I want you to see big picture. I want you to see beyond your street and the recent comps and all that stuff. I want you to see like, what is $1.2 million, if that's your target, getting buyers, and get a sense of what people are willing to pay for in that range. And I think it's going to give you like a really good perspective about expectations when you look at it through that lens. And that's something I always do when we do pricing. I'm like, okay, the seller wants this. I think it's probably worth this. What can you buy with this money? And we know that buyers want value right now. So let's just understand what that value looks like. And now I'm not talking about what's listed for 1.2. I'm talking about what is sold for 1.2. And I'm not talking about what sold for 1.2 last year. I'm talking about what sold for 1.2 in the last like week or two or three. I think that's going to be really helpful as well.
It's really important, and it's so interesting because one of the things that we see as feedback on social media with agents is they're always trying to pump the market, and of course they are because it's in their best interest. And while we are always very big advocates of buying Toronto real estate, we are also very big advocates of not selling or holding your Toronto real estate, which is something that would be atypical if you think all we're doing is just trying to pump both sides. So we are very bullish, and that has not changed, on the long-term opportunities that the Toronto real estate market will provide anybody. And that has not changed. What is in flux right now is this time period that we're in with high inflation and higher interest rates, which are probably going to continue to go up. And so because of that, we're in this time frame where a lot of people are freaking out, and some very justifiable because they're under a lot of financial duress. But we're telling anybody who's thinking about selling, if they can hold, to hold. And the reason is because if you understand the fundamentals of Toronto real estate and how long-term constrained supply is in the face of a tremendous amount of demand in immigration, you'll zoom out and you'll realize that there is no impending collapse that's going to happen. And that if you can make it through these times, just like the people who were sitting on the fence in March 2020, if you can make it through these times, you're going to be fine. And so the one thing that we will always, always, always advise people is do not sell a property on the belief, if you own Toronto real estate, that there is this imminent disaster crash coming. It's just not going to happen. And if there is a blip and there is downward pressure, which there could be, and a softness, if you sell now, you will look back in 3 or 4 years and, in our opinion, regret it. And we're holding on to all of our properties. Personally, we're not selling anything. So this isn't just somebody just preaching to somebody else something that they're not doing. This is exactly what we are doing and what we're recommending to all of our clients. And I can go back the last 30 years in Toronto real estate. There's not one person who's owned Toronto real estate over the last 30 years and sold a property and not regretted having sold that property, even though in the moment there were specific reasons or fears that caused them to take that action. Don't sell out of fear, sell out of strength. And sell out of strength meaning is if that's taking you somewhere. And most of the people right now who we see venturing into this market where we have 30-year lows in transactions with high interest rates are people who, for various reasons in their lives, need to make a move. Yeah. Either they're having another child and they need an extra bedroom or they need the extra space. They're getting divorced. You have people passing away and wills being probated. You have people, looking to allocate resources for various reasons in other places. And so in those situations, or somebody actually who's in real financial duress, those situations definitely make sense. But what we're saying is really, really think about the reasons why you're selling and strategically, not short-term, but long-term, in the bigger picture, does this make sense? And I think if you get to this point and you've got life changes or other financial plans and it's thought out and it's not fear-based or reactionary, then you can start to sort of piece together, okay, well, now we know our specific reasons for selling. Now we know where we're going, either physically or with our capital. Now we have to figure out what makes the most sense in terms of a sale price. And if we have to sell lower than our expectations, is that okay? And where is the line for us? And I think once you have that clarity, you'll be able to move forward and you'll be able to set yourself up for a win.
I love that. And it's so friggin' true. So we're moving on to tip number 3. Are you ready? Okay. Sellers, if you are going to sell this fall 2023, expect conditions in the offers and buyers demanding more for their dollar. So we have seen this even over the course of the last 4 to 6 weeks, the inclusion of home inspections, condo inspections,
my gosh,
appraisal conditions,
insurance,
status certificate reviews, and of course, financing. And I would expect the conditions to be a good solid 5 days to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
So if you know this and you're ready for it, so you've got reasonable expectation on your sale price, you're working with a great agent, you know why you're selling, you've got a plan. Again, you're not expecting to sell it in 3 hours. You have a reasonable time frame for which it's going to sell. And finally, you get some offers dribbling in. Again, not hot market, not super sexy. Expect those offers to be kind of boring and expect them to have conditions. If you know that in advance, oh my gosh, so much more palatable to absorb this. If you're like, okay, I was expecting that, so expect it. Okay. So buyers are also going to be demanding more in terms of like minor repairs that might pop up in an inspection. They might expect you to buy something out. Like, for example, if you rent your hot water tank or you rent your furnace or air conditioner, they might expect you to buy out that contract before closing. They might expect specific inclusions in the sale, like a specific light fixture, or they want to have your curtains and the hardware, or they might want to have a particular piece of furniture. So expect them to be asking for more than ever before, and they might not even be willing to give you the closing date that you want. They might want the closing date that works for them. So be very sensitive about this because it's 100% going to happen.
Great advice, Kori.
Oh, you're welcome. Do you want to add anything to that?
I always do. The other thing is, I think buyers are going to be very hypersensitive to additional costs. We're in a climate right now where everything is going up. So additional costs are something that is not going to be something that a lot of buyers are going to want to take on. So when I say additional costs, some examples are condos with very high maintenance fees. That is going to be really concerning when you're getting a mortgage at 6.5%.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one thing to think about if you have a property with high maintenance fees. And for low-rise homes, homes that need renovations, because renovations are just so darn expensive. Like, we have clients who looked at doing a 3rd-story addition and a very big renovation of their home, and they had it quoted out in 2019. After the peak of COVID in 2021, they had everything requoted. Those quotes had doubled.
Yeah.
And they realized they were better off just to buy a renovated home. And so buying renovated properties where people don't have to undergo costs right now, which are just going straight up, is something else that's really important. So that if you're bringing a property to market on the selling side, you should be very cognizant of additional costs that buyers may face, such as high maintenance fees, having to buy out, appliances, not appliance, but like EnerCare packages for a hot water tank or something like that, as well as renovation costs. So all of this needs to be kept in mind when you're thinking about bringing your property to market.
I also think condo buyers, I totally agree with that, are going to scrutinize the status certificate. So they're going to want to know that the reserve fund is healthy. What are the projected increases or forecasted increases to maintenance fees? Are there any pending special assessments? Like, all of this obviously should be always reviewed in like a seller's market or a balanced market, or buyer, no matter what market. But I think it's going to be even more nitty gritty now more than ever before. And so again, this kind of goes back to our other point. If you're in a building like that and you are selling for whatever reason, and you do have a status certificate that's a little shaky, you are going to have to be very flexible and responsive to buyers wanting more for their dollar if they're going to buy into a building that has any of those said hiccups. So
Absolutely.
I think this all makes total sense. So again, if you're going in with eyes wide open and you know this in advance, then you're going to be setting yourself up for such a more positive experience.
We just sold a condo and it had Kitech, and we had, in advance of going to market, we had the work repaired to be quoted out, and there was a hot water tank that had a very high maintenance fee cost or payment cost, and we had the buyout in hand, so that when potential buyers were coming in, not just like the way past Toronto markets were like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to get whatever I can. They're now going to say, well, how much is this hot water tank? Can I see the buyout? Oh, there's Kitech. I'd like to have it repaired. How much is the repair cost? Oh, I'm buying a house. Is there a buyout on the AC EnerCare deal that somebody signed 10 years ago? So these are things when you're going to market that are costs that a buyer is really, really going to scrutinize. And going back to what Kori was saying, even about a status certificate, there may be special assessments. There may be all kinds of things coming down the pipe in that condo. You might have to either incorporate into your costs, or you might be prepared to have to prepare yourself to write checks.
It's amazing how just writing checks makes problems go away.
Most of the time.
All right, moving on to tip number 4. Okay. 5-star, best in class, staging, styling, prep, photography, video, marketing collateral. This is going to matter. It always matters, okay? We are big fans of all of these things, and you would know that if you follow us or watched any of our former podcasts or been on our website or Instagram or anything, you know that we're into this. But like I'm telling you, sellers, now more than ever before, like now, this fall, 2023, this matters more than ever before. So we always have an expression at Fox Marin that buyers purchase on emotion and justify it with logic afterwards. And how do we get them to do that? These very tools. So you need to work with a broker or an agent that offers these services and have proven track record of being able to deliver on quality marketing. We are living in an information age where everything is visual. People need to be stimulated, motivated, evoked. They need to see something that piques their interest, that gets them excited, that gets them to want to get off their couch and go see a property in a market where they don't even know what's going to happen from one week to the next. We've got to make that happen by making things look beautiful and enticing and inspiring. That is how you do it. I am telling you, I don't care if you have a low rise. I don't care if you have a luxury property. I don't care if you have a generic cookie cutter condo in the middle of downtown Toronto. These are all going to add up more than ever before. So please pay attention to this. I can't even stress it enough. I hope I'm showing my passion through the screen.
I think you did a great job. I felt it sitting right here.
Good.
So that's awesome. And I think it's really, really important to understand that of all the types of purchases somebody could ever make, a home will be the most emotional purchase that they'll ever make. And so making that connection is so important. And showing that you have taken every single detail into account is so important as a seller and as the listing agent that's representing you. And you will see a trend when you look online and you see properties sitting 40, 50, 60, 80 days on the market. Those are going to be the ones that are not utilized to their highest and best potential, that are not connecting with potential buyers, and that are not priced right and strategically approach going to market. And in a market where you're seeing a shift in sentiment and you're seeing a shift in affordability from an interest rate standpoint, this matters more than ever.
Totally. And you'll have to remember.
Did you feel my passion?
I did. And I was laughing because I was like, I feel like that matched my passion.
Nice.
So you have to remember too that buyers are going to have an abundance of choice.
Yes.
More than they're accustomed to. So you need to stand out in the crowd, and you're going to stand out using these very themes. And another thing that we've talked about many times, and I just know this to be true, is that buyers trust properties that are well marketed. And again, and we've talked about this, so I don't need to keep beating a dead horse with this. It's not like they're walking through the property and they're like, oh, I trust this property because it's staged and all the information about the property is available. And ooh, the copywriting is good. Now I trust the property. It's not that. It's a feeling. And this goes back to emotions. When you walk into a property that is well showcased, has all the information available, has a pre-list inspection there, has all the quotes for repair work done, has the information about open permits being closed,
has the status certificate on order.
All of these things, if it's all there, it just instinctively feels better for the buyers' parents, the buyer's agents, everyone involved when the property is well marketed. It just feels better. And when it feels better, you trust it. And when you trust it, you can make decisions to move forward on things. When things are super sketchy, you're like, I don't know when their offer date is. I can't reach the agent. These pictures are crap. There's no inspection.
There's no description.
Yeah, all of these details. Then you're like, oh, it's tenanted, but there's no information about how much the tenants are paying.
There's no lease on hand.
All of this stuff. So sellers, please remember all of this. It's it makes such a huge difference when it's marketed. And I know you pay a premium on your commissions, and we get that and we respect it. But you want to have value and services for the commissions that you pay, not some bullshit listing where you're not getting anything out of it.
The BS word?
I did. It just bothers me. So please Please work with agents that know how to do this properly, particularly in a cosmopolitan like city like Toronto, where buyers are hyper sophisticated about this and they expect this.
And they deserve it.
They totally do. So please. Okay, that's my tip. Anything else you want to add to that?
Oh, I think you did a great job.
Okay. All right. So the final tip number 5 of 5 is market positioning. So we briefly talked about this before, but this is something that people often overlook. And it's not a term that's often used in real estate, though it's used a lot in product sales, for example. So I want you to think of your home as a product. I want you to think of it as an asset. And you want to think about like, how are you positioning yourself against the competition? This is key. Like if we are creating a makeup line or a shoe line or a hoodie line or something like that, we would be looking at what other product is out there and how are they positioning, how are they messaging, and how they're pricing.
And who's winning and who's not.
Yeah, and who the buyer is. And they would be really like specific about it. And I want you as a seller to be working with your agent and thinking about this too. This is what you should be doing. This is what you're collaborating on. So you have to be really smart about this. So you got to be like, what's currently on the market? I know it seems like really ridiculously obvious, but a lot of people don't even bother. And you're like, okay, what's on the market? How are they priced? Just like you said, what's worked, what's not worked. And I'm not talking about last year. I'm talking about over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, very recently. And then you're thinking about who is the buyer for this and where could we uncover this potential buyer? Is it a millennial? Are they millennials where the parents are going to, be involved in this process? Is this a downsizer unit? Is this a retiree type of complex? Is this going to be student? I think that's another really big one. So like our kids coming to Toronto for school and the parents are perhaps buying them a condo so that they can live in while they're at U of T for 4 years.
It happens.
It happens. And God, some of those condos that they get to live in, trust me, none of us lived in a condo like that.
Nicer than the basement I lived in at Western.
Yeah. Probably much nicer than the house I lived on Paysound Avenue with 4 girls and 2 guys when I went to Dell. It was not a pretty house. And our landlord was really scary. So I want you to think about, he was really scary. So that's one piece of it. The other thing is, and we talked about this briefly earlier, is like what announcements have just come out and what is the media narrative in that moment? And how are you positioning against that? And are you ready to position yourself against that? Then I want you to think about what holidays are coming up because you don't want to be listed right around Thanksgiving as an example, or right on Labor Day. I know.
As somebody who's Jewish, there's a lot of holidays and everybody seems to make the minor ones big holidays. So Simchas Torah, all of those little guys out there, things shut down a lot. And so you really want to navigate against all of those things. You don't want to be going on the market the weekend after or the weekend before a lot of these big holidays.
Totally. And it's amazing how many agents overlook this. They've overlooked looking at the calendar.
And it's a really interesting point. Like people always ask us, when is the best time to buy Toronto real estate? And we always have said there is no calendar date, but we have always had the best luck personally for properties, for our family and for our clients, long weekends.
Yeah.
Somebody who markets a property over a long weekend and then they didn't realize it and then nobody comes to see it because people aren't in the city or doing other things. And then they start to sort of get desperate. Those are the best times to be hunting out there as a buyer. And they're the worst times to be hitting that critical 1 week time on the market as a seller. Look at your calendars.
So true. With market positioning as well, which goes along with calendars, is you do not need to be the first listing that goes to market after Labor Day. You just don't need to be that house, please, because everyone is like, oh my God, the fall market. And then all of a sudden there's just this rush of like a gazillion million properties that go to market on the same day. And really in this market, you do not need to be competing with extra inventory. Sit back, have a glass of wine, watch other people win and watch people fail and learn from what they're doing.
And learn from what the market is telling you in a new market paradigm, which we are going to be entering.
Yes. And so September 6th is going to be a really big date. And then I really think sellers, you need to take like a good solid 2 weeks after that before like just going guns a-blazing to hit the market. And let's just let other people make a few mistakes. Let other people test the market. Let's let them get the prices figured out. And then we can capitalize on that and leverage that to create a winning strategy for you. Like it's actually like not even that difficult, but it's amazing how many people overlook that and are impatient. So I just need you to have a little bit of patience, a little bit of wait and see. And I think you're going to do really well as long as you put all of these 5 tactics into play.
So with rising interest rates, impending Bank of Canada announcements, and ever-shifting landscape, achieving clarity has never been more valuable. In today's market, the journey of selling is not just about plastering a for sale sign on your lawn.
So true.
It's about setting expectations, understanding the little and the big nuances between condos and low-rise markets, and differentiating well-market properties from the rest. Be ahead of the pack. So be prepared. This season will be a grind and is for the grinders. Sellers might be reminiscing about past records, but buyers are on the hunt for deals. What is the key to all of this? Pricing your property conservatively yet fairly, but being agile up until that listing date, and then continuing to be agile as buyers today will come with a checklist, which often includes inspections, appraisals, and just remember, selling is as much of an emotional journey as it is a financial journey. So make sure that you are clear on why you are doing what you are doing, and it's resonating with you, not just on a financial level, but on the emotional level. If you've been with us through this episode, you've equipped with strategies to thrive this fall. Whether a seasoned homeowner or a newcomer to the selling game, our insights aim to set you up for success in a market that keeps us all on our toes. Kori, being a former ballerina, probably do that better than myself, but I will be out there grinding for all of you.
Yes, we will. That was really well done. I'm impressed.
Thank you so much.
We've had to substitute for our Ian Busher with our intro and outro today. So we're not acclimatized to that.
No, we're not. But thank you so much for watching us. Thank you so much for making it to the end. We're so glad you stayed for the entire talk here. And on behalf of myself and Fox Marin, if you like the content, if you have any constructive feedback, the good, the bad, the ugly, we'd absolutely love to hear from you. We'll take it all. And please be sure to hit that subscribe button or like button. And we hope to see you on our next episode.
And contact us because we're nice and fun and smart. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.